Admiral Kexthul's hands shook as he activated the emergency communication system. Red lights flashed throughout the command station, and klaxons wailed in the distance. Within minutes, his screen filled with the faces of fleet commanders from across the Empire. "Explain this madness, Kexthul," demanded Fleet Admiral Vorgan, his scarred face twisted with anger. "How did a single human ship penetrate our defenses?" "I don't know," Kexthul admitted. "It appeared without warning. No hyperspace signature, no energy trail. It's using technology we don't understand." The other commanders began talking at once, their voices creating a buzz of panic and confusion. General Hector slammed his fist on his desk. "This is impossible. We have 300 ships in the 3rd Imperial Fleet alone. How can one primitive vessel threaten us?" "Because it's not primitive," Kexthul said quietly. The room fell silent. Whatever we thought we knew about human capabilities, we were wrong. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Liberty, Captain Morrison walked through the ship's corridors with calm confidence. The interior was unlike any vessel in the Imperial databases. Instead of harsh metal and sharp angles, the walls curved smoothly and glowed with soft light. The air hummed with energy from systems that seemed almost alive. He stopped at the navigation center, where Lieutenant Lisa Carter worked at a 3-dimensional star map that floated in the air above her console. The map showed the positions of Imperial fleets throughout the sector, marked in red dots like drops of blood against the black of space. "How are we looking, Lisa?" Morrison asked. "They're mobilizing everything, Captain," she replied. "I count over 800 ships moving toward our position. They're pulling vessels from patrol routes, garrison duty, even the Academy training squadrons." Morrison nodded. "Good. The more they commit here, the less they have elsewhere." At the weapons station, Dan Murphy looked up from his controls. "Sir, should I prepare the defensive systems? That's a lot of firepower heading our way." "Not yet. Dan, we want them to get close first." Morrison moved to the main view screen, where the Imperial command station hung like a giant metal spider against the stars. They need to understand what they're really facing. Back on the command station, Admiral Kexthul received reports that chilled his blood. The human ship was not running. It was not hiding. Instead, it moved through space with casual ease, ignoring the Imperial fleets gathering around it. "Sir," called Tactical Officer Rendall, "the human vessel is changing course. It's heading directly for the Kethvar asteroid field." Kexthul's eyes widened. "That's impossible. Nothing can navigate through Kethvar. The gravity fields are too unstable. Ships get torn apart." "Should we follow them, sir? Are you insane? We'd lose half the fleet." Kexthul stared at the tactical display. "Set up a perimeter around the field. When they try to come out, we'll be waiting." But the Liberty didn't try to come out. It went in. Lieutenant Carter sat calmly at her navigation console as massive asteroids spun through space around the ship. Each rock was the size of a mountain, tumbling and colliding with crushing force. The gravity fields pulled in different directions, creating a maze of death that had destroyed countless vessels over the centuries. "Gravity well approaching on the starboard side," she reported, adjusting course to compensate. The ship moved like a dancer through the deadly field. It slipped between crushing rocks and surfed along gravity waves that would have flattened any Imperial vessel. The crew worked with quiet efficiency, as if this was routine training rather than an impossible feat of navigation. "How are they doing this?" whispered sensor operator Yilnex as he watched the Liberty's progress on his screen. Admiral Kexthul had no answer. The human ship moved through the asteroid field, as if the laws of physics didn't apply to it. It dodged obstacles that their sensors couldn't even track properly, and rode gravity currents that their best computers said were impossible to predict. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the human vessel," reported Communications Officer Zektal. "Put it through." Captain Morrison's face appeared on the screen again. Behind him, his crew worked calmly at their stations, while asteroids the size of cities drifted past the viewports. "Enjoying the show, Admiral?" Morrison asked with a slight smile. "This is impossible," Kexthul said. "No ship can navigate the Kethvar field." "No Imperial ship," Morrison corrected. We've been practicing this route for 3 years. My navigation officer could fly it with her eyes closed. Lieutenant Carter looked up from her console and gave a small wave to the screen. Actually did that once during a training exercise, she said cheerfully. Made it through in record time. Admiral Kexathul felt his world shifting beneath his feet. Everything the Empire knew about human limitations was wrong. While they had assumed humanity was contained and helpless, the humans had been preparing for this moment. "What do you want?" Kexathul asked. "To deliver a message," Morrison replied. "But first you need to understand something. This ship, this crew, this technology, we're not unique. We're standard." "What do you mean?" "I mean Earth has been building ships like the Liberty for the past 50 years. We have better navigation systems than you do. Better weapons. Better engines. Better everything." Morrison leaned forward in his chair. The only thing we were missing was the decision to use them. The human captain gestured to his crew. "These people aren't special forces, Admiral. Lisa is a navigation officer, 3rd class. Dan just graduated from weapons school last year. Pete, over there, used to fix air recycling systems on cargo ships." Engineer Commander Johnson looked up from his console and nodded politely to the screen. "You see, while your empire was celebrating its victory over humanity, we were learning from our defeat," Morrison continued. "We studied your tactics. We analyzed your technology. We figured out your weaknesses. And then we built something better." Admiral Kexathul watched as the Liberty emerged from the other side of the asteroid field without a scratch. Imperial doctrine said it was impossible. Their best pilots couldn't navigate those gravity fields, but the humans had done it as easily as flying through empty space. "The question you should be asking," Morrison said, "is not how we got one ship past your defenses. The question is how many more ships we have that you don't know about." The communication channel closed, leaving the Imperial bridge in stunned silence. Around them, the greatest military force in galactic history was mobilizing to fight a single human vessel. But for the first time in his career, Admiral Kexathul wondered if it would be enough. The humans were no longer the primitive species they had defeated centuries ago. They had evolved, adapted, and improved while hiding in their small corner of space. And now they were announcing their return to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. The hunt was about to begin, but Kexathul was no longer sure who was the hunter and who was the prey. Emperor Zarkun sat on his crystal throne in the heart of the Imperial Palace, his golden robes flowing around his tall, thin frame. The throne room was massive, with walls that reached toward the sky like the inside of a cathedral. Hundreds of alien dignitaries and government officials filled the space, all waiting to hear his response to the human crisis. "Send Ambassador Veltar," the Emperor commanded. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "If these humans want to talk, we will listen, but we will also prepare for war." Ambassador Veltar was the Empire's best diplomat, a calm and intelligent being who had negotiated peace treaties with dozens of species. He had never failed to find a peaceful solution to any conflict. But as he prepared his diplomatic shuttle, even he felt uncertain about this mission. The meeting location was an abandoned mining station in neutral space, halfway between the Imperial fleet and the human ship. The station had been empty for decades, its metal corridors dark and cold. But when Ambassador Veltar arrived, he found that the humans had already prepared the main conference room with lights and breathable atmosphere. Captain Morrison waited in the room with 2 of his crew members. Communications officer Katie Bell sat at a translation console, even though her equipment seemed unnecessary since the humans spoke perfect galactic standard. Security Chief Ryan Clark stood near the door, alert, but not threatening. "Welcome, Ambassador," Morrison said, standing to greet his guest. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Veltar studied the human captain carefully. Morrison looked relaxed and confident, not like someone whose ship was surrounded by the largest fleet in galactic history. "Captain Morrison, I come seeking understanding." "What do you want from the Empire?" "Nothing," Morrison replied simply. "We don't want anything from you. We're here to tell you what we're going to do." The ambassador felt confused. Every species that challenged the Empire wanted something: territory, resources, trade agreements, or independence. But this human seemed to be saying something different. "I don't understand," Veltar admitted. Morrison gestured to chairs around the conference table. "Please sit. Katie, would you activate the holographic display?" The room filled with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems glowed like tiny suns, connected by the trade routes and hyperspace lanes that held the Empire together. It was beautiful and familiar, the Empire that had brought peace to countless worlds. But as Veltar watched, new markers appeared on the map. Green dots scattered throughout Imperial space, some in systems he recognized, others in places that were supposed to be empty. "What are these?" he asked. "Human colonies," Morrison said calmly. 17 systems so far, with more being established every month. Ambassador Veltar stared at the map in shock. "That's impossible. We monitor all colonization activities. We would have detected your ships, your construction projects, your population movements. You monitored what you expected to see," Communications Officer Bell explained. "Our colonization methods are different from yours. We don't build giant cities or massive industrial complexes. We integrate with existing environments and use technology that doesn't show up on your sensors. You're claiming you've secretly colonized 17 star systems without our knowledge?" Veltar's voice rose with disbelief. The logistics alone would be impossible. The number of ships, the resources, the people. Security Chief Clark spoke for the first time. "Ambassador, you're thinking like an Imperial. You assume colonization requires the same methods your people use. Humans do things differently." Morrison touched a control on the table, and the holographic display zoomed in on one of the green markers. It showed a beautiful world with blue oceans and green continents. But instead of the massive cities typical of Imperial colonies, there were small settlements scattered across the surface, almost hidden among the natural landscape. "This is new. Montana," Morrison explained. "Population, 200,000, established 15 years ago. They grow food, manufacture equipment, and provide ships for our exploration fleet. Your surveys classified this world as uninhabitable because of atmospheric variations that make Imperial technology unreliable." "But humans can live there?" Veltar asked. "Humans can live anywhere, Ambassador. We adapt." The display changed to show another world, this one covered in ice and snow. "New Alaska, population 50,000. They mine rare elements and build our defensive systems. Your Empire never bothered to survey this system because the star output is too low for most species to generate enough power." "We generate power differently," Bell added. Ambassador Veltar felt his carefully prepared negotiation strategy crumbling. He had come here expecting to deal with a small rebel group making demands. Instead, he was facing an established civilization that had been expanding quietly for years. "What do you want from the Empire?" he asked again. "We want you to leave." "Us alone," Morrison said. "We're not asking for permission to exist. We're informing you that we do exist and we're going to continue existing. The Emperor will never accept this. You're violating every treaty and law that governs galactic civilization." Morrison leaned back in his chair. "Ambassador, those treaties were signed by human governments that no longer exist. Earth has a new government now, and we never agreed to be bound by the surrender terms of our ancestors. You can't just ignore centuries of law and precedent." "Watch us," Clark said quietly. The security chief activated another control, and the holographic display showed something that made Ambassador Veltar's blood run cold. Ships. Hundreds of them, scattered throughout space in positions that Imperial sensors had never detected. They were different shapes and sizes than anything in the databases, but they all had the same smooth, organic curves as the Liberty. "How many ships do you have?" Veltar whispered. "Enough," Morrison replied. "The real question is whether the Empire wants to find out the hard way or the easy way. Are you threatening us? We're offering you a choice, Ambassador. You can accept that humanity is no longer under Imperial control and negotiate new relationships based on mutual respect. Or you can try to force us back into our cage and discover what humans do when they're truly angry." Ambassador Veltar had negotiated with dozens of species, But he had never encountered anything like this. The humans weren't making demands or threats in the traditional sense. They were simply stating facts about what was going to happen. The Emperor will mobilize every fleet in the Empire before he accepts this, Veltar said. Morrison nodded sadly. We know. We hoped for better, but we prepared for worse. Captain, surely we can find some compromise. Some arrangement that satisfies both sides. The compromise was the original containment treaty, Ambassador. For 2 centuries, humans stayed in their assigned space and caused no trouble. But during that time we also grew up. We're not the same species you defeated anymore. Communications Officer Bell looked up from her console. Captain, we're receiving reports from the colonies. Imperial fleets are moving toward human space, in force. Morrison sighed. It seems the Emperor has made his choice. He stood up from the table. Ambassador, I want you to deliver a message to your Emperor. Tell him that humanity bears no ill will toward the Empire or its people. We simply refuse to be anyone's prisoners anymore. And if he refuses to accept this? Captain Morrison looked directly at the ambassador, and for the first time Veltar saw something dangerous in the human's eyes. Then he'll learn why the Empire was so afraid of us in the first place. The meeting was over. As Ambassador Veltar returned to his shuttle, he realized that he was carrying news that would change the galaxy forever. The age of Imperial dominance was ending, and the age of humanity was about to begin. Emperor Zarkun's rage shook the crystal walls of his throne room. Ambassador Veltar knelt before the throne, his message delivered, his diplomatic mission a complete failure. Around the massive chamber, military commanders and government officials waited in tense silence. 2,000 ships, the Emperor commanded, his voice echoing like an earthquake. Mobilize the first Imperial Armada. Every dreadnought, every battlecruiser, every weapon we possess. These humans will learn the price of defying the Empire. War Marshal Tekvar stepped forward, his battle armor gleaming under the palace lights. He was the Empire's greatest military strategist, the architect of a dozen successful campaigns against rebel worlds. Your Majesty, 2,000 ships may be excessive for a single human vessel. It is not excessive, Zarkun roared. It is final. I want no possibility of failure. Crush them completely, and let every species in the galaxy see what happens to those who challenge Imperial authority. The orders went out across the Empire's vast communication network. From military bases and orbital stations throughout the galaxy, warships began moving toward human space. The first Imperial Armada was the Empire's ultimate weapon, a force designed to end wars before they could truly begin. At the center of this massive fleet was the dreadnought Eternal Glory, a ship so large it had its own gravity field. War Marshal Tekvar commanded from its bridge, surrounded by tactical displays showing the positions of his 2,000 vessels. It was the largest military formation in galactic history, assembled to destroy a single human ship. Sir, reported Fleet Communications Officer Dalvin, we're approaching the coordinates where the human vessel was last detected. Tekvar nodded. Activate all sensors. I want to know everything about their capabilities before we engage. The Armada dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, creating a wall of metal and weapons that stretched across space like a mechanical constellation. At the center of the formation, exactly where intelligence reports said it would be, floated the UES Liberty. The human ship looked small and fragile compared to the massive Imperial dreadnought surrounding it, but War Marshal Tekvar had studied the reports from Admiral Kexthal. This vessel had demonstrated capabilities that defied Imperial understanding of physics and technology. Open a communication channel, Tekvar ordered. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with the same calm efficiency they had shown throughout this crisis. They seemed completely unimpressed by the overwhelming force arranged against them. War Marshal Tekvar, Morrison said politely. Impressive fleet you've assembled, 2,000 ships if I'm counting correctly. Surrender now, and your crew will be treated according to military law, Tekvar replied. Resist and you will be destroyed. Morrison smiled. War Marshal, I need to tell you something important. What you're looking at isn't a single ship. What do you mean? I mean, the Liberty is actually 12 ships flying in very close formation. We thought it would be more dramatic this way. As Morrison spoke, the human vessel began to change. Parts of the hull separated and moved away from each other, revealing that what had appeared to be one ship was actually a small fleet. Each section had its own engines, weapons, and crew compartments. War Marshal Thekvar stared at his tactical displays as 12 distinct human vessels spread out across space. Impossible. Our sensors showed only one ship. Your sensors saw what we wanted them to see, Morrison replied. We've been practicing this trick for years. The 12 human ships moved with perfect coordination, each one taking a different position around the Imperial formation. War Marshal Thekvar realized with growing alarm that his forces were no longer surrounding the enemy. They were surrounded by them. All ships prepare for battle, he ordered. Wait, Morrison said. Before we begin, I want to introduce you to my squadron commanders. The communication screen split into multiple images. Morrison remained in the center, but now Thekvar could see the bridges of the other human vessels. A woman with short blonde hair sat in one command chair. Her name badge read Martinez. A large man with a beard commanded another ship, his uniform identifying him as Baker. Commander Sue Martinez, Morrison said, gesturing to the blonde woman. She commands the heavy weapons section. Major Tony Baker handles our tactical systems. Each of my people has been training for this moment for over a decade. War Marshal Thekvar had fought countless battles against rebel fleets and pirate groups, but he had never faced an enemy that seemed so calm and confident while outnumbered by such overwhelming odds. You are 12 ships against 2,000, he said. This is suicide. Is it? Morrison asked. Let's find out. The battle began when one of the Imperial ships fired a warning shot across the bow of Commander Martinez's vessel. The energy beam, designed to disable enemy engines, simply passed through the human ship as if it wasn't there. What happened? Demanded Thekvar. Sir, the human vessel appears to have shifted into a different phase of matter, reported his science officer. Our weapons can't hit something that exists in a different dimensional frequency. The human ships began to move through the Imperial formation like ghosts. They passed through Imperial vessels without causing damage, but as they did, the Imperial ships' systems began failing. Weapons went offline. Engines shut down. Life support systems flickered and failed. They're using some kind of disruptive field, called Tactical Officer Renkax. Every ship they pass through loses power. War Marshal Thekvar watched in horror as his perfect battle formation fell apart. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems failed. Communications went dead across entire sectors of the fleet. The humans were turning the Empire's own numbers against them, creating chaos and confusion. All ships maintain formation, Thekvar ordered. But his commands couldn't reach vessels whose communication systems had been disabled by human technology. Meanwhile, the 12 human ships danced through the Imperial fleet like deadly performers. They moved in patterns that seemed almost artistic, weaving between the massive Imperial vessels and leaving disabled ships in their wake. How are they doing this? Whispered Communications Officer Dalvin. War Marshal Thekvar had no answer. The humans were fighting with technology and tactics completely outside Imperial experience. They weren't trying to destroy the Imperial fleet. They were systematically disabling it, ship by ship, without suffering any damage themselves. Sir, we've lost contact with over 400 vessels, reported the tactical officer. The remaining ships are reporting complete system failures across all departments. Impossible. We have the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Apparently not anymore. Morrison's voice came from the communication system. War Marshal, this demonstration is over. Your fleet is defeated. Do you wish to surrender, or shall we continue? Thekvar stared at his displays in disbelief. The greatest military force in galactic history had been neutralized by 12 human ships in less than an hour. His vessels floated helplessly in space, their crews alive but their weapons useless. How? He whispered. 200 years of preparation, Morrison replied. While your empire grew comfortable with victory, we never stopped learning from our defeat. We studied your weaknesses, developed new technologies, and prepared for this day. The communication screen showed all 12 human commanders, each one calm and professional despite having just achieved the impossible. The message is simple, War Marshal, Morrison continued. Humanity is no longer contained. We're no longer asking for permission. We're taking our place in the galaxy, and anyone who tries to stop us will face the consequences. War Marshal Thekvar, the greatest military mind in Imperial history, realized that he had just witnessed the end of an age. The Empire's military dominance was over, shattered by an enemy they had underestimated for too long. The Imperial Palace had never been so quiet. Emperor Zarkun sat alone on his crystal throne, staring at the holographic reports floating before him like ghosts of his former power. 2,000 ships disabled without a single human casualty. The first Imperial Armada, the pride of galactic civilization, reduced to helpless metal drifting in space. War Marshal Thekvar knelt before the throne, his battle armor scratched and dented not from combat, but from the desperate attempts to repair his flagship systems after the human attack. Your Majesty, he said quietly, we have underestimated them completely. How long to repair the fleet? The Emperor asked. Months, perhaps years. The humans didn't destroy our ships, but they changed them somehow. Our engineers don't understand how their technology works. Every system we try to fix fails again within hours. Emperor Zarkun closed his eyes. For 1,000 years, the Vorthan Empire had ruled the galaxy through superior military might and advanced technology. Now both advantages were gone, neutralized by a species they had considered primitive and contained. What do they want? He whispered. Nothing, Your Majesty. They want nothing from us except to be left alone. 3 months later, on the neutral world of Kepler Station, history changed forever. The station's main conference center had been converted into a diplomatic meeting hall, with representatives from dozens of species watching as Captain Morrison walked to the podium. He looked the same as he had during his first communication, with Admiral Kexthul, calm, confident, and completely at ease despite being the center of galactic attention. Behind him sat Helen Price, Earth's new ambassador to the galaxy, along with several other human officials. Ladies and gentlemen, beings of all species, Morrison began, I stand before you today not as a conqueror but as a representative of free humanity. For too long, our species has been treated as a threat to be contained rather than a people to be respected. In the audience, Ambassador Veltar listened with fascination and fear. The human captain's words were polite and diplomatic, but underneath lay a strength that could not be ignored. The disabled Imperial fleet served as a constant reminder of what happened when humanity was pushed too far. Earth does not seek to rule the galaxy, Morrison continued. We have no desire to replace one empire with another, but we will no longer accept being caged like dangerous animals. Humanity claims its right to exist as equals among the stars. Emperor Zarkun himself was present, sitting in the front row with his remaining military advisors. The proud ruler who had commanded the loyalty of thousands of worlds now looked small and uncertain. The galaxy had changed around him, and he was struggling to understand his place in this new reality. What guarantees can you offer that humanity will not become a threat to peaceful species? Asked Ambassador Kexran of the Altair Confederation. Morrison smiled. The same guarantee you offer us, Ambassador. Mutual respect and non-interference. We have 17 thriving colonies and growing trade relationships with over 40 species. None of them consider us a threat because we have never given them reason to fear us. But your military capabilities, protested General Hector from his seat near the Emperor. The power you demonstrated against our fleet. How do we know you? Won't use it for conquest? Because conquest was never our goal, Ambassador Price replied, standing to address the assembly. For 2 centuries, humanity has wanted only one thing, the freedom to determine our own destiny. We have that freedom now, and we intend to use it responsibly. She activated a holographic display showing the human colonies scattered throughout space. Our settlements are small and self-sufficient. We don't strip mine worlds or build massive industrial complexes. We integrate with local ecosystems and trade fairly with our neighbors. This is not the behavior of a conquering species. Admiral Quetzalcoatl, who had been present for humanity's first demonstration of power, stood slowly from his seat. What about your military technology? The capabilities your ships displayed go far beyond anything we understand. Captain Morrison nodded respectfully to the Admiral. Our technology will remain our own, just as yours remains yours. We have no interest in starting an arms race or destabilizing galactic civilization, but we also will not allow ourselves to be vulnerable to attack again. So you're saying humanity will police itself? Asked Chancellor Velquan of the Rigel Systems. We're saying humanity will govern itself, Morrison corrected, just as every other species in this room governs itself. We ask for nothing more than equal treatment and nothing less than respect for our sovereignty. The debate continued for hours, with representatives from dozens of worlds asking questions about trade, territorial boundaries, and diplomatic relationships. Through it all, the human delegation remained patient and reasonable, offering cooperation while making it clear that they would not compromise on their fundamental independence. Finally, Emperor Zarkun himself stood to speak. The hall fell silent as the once mighty ruler approached the podium. His golden robes seemed less bright than they had in the imperial palace, and his voice lacked its former commanding power. Captain Morrison, he said, Ambassador Price, representatives of humanity. The Vorthon Empire formally recognizes the independence of the human colonies and withdraws all claims to human space. The words seemed to physically pain him, but he continued. We acknowledge that the containment treaty is void and that humanity has the right to exist as a free and sovereign people among the stars. The audience erupted in surprised conversation. The emperor who had sworn to crush human independence was now officially granting it. Morrison stepped forward and extended his hand to the emperor. Your Majesty, Earth accepts your recognition and offers friendship between our peoples. The past is the past. What matters now is building a future where all species can prosper in peace. Emperor Zarkun looked at the offered hand for a long moment, then reached out and shook it. The gesture was seen by billions of beings across the galaxy, marking the end of the old order and the beginning of something new. 6 months later, human trade ships regularly visited imperial worlds, carrying exotic goods from their scattered colonies. Human diplomats worked alongside imperial officials to resolve disputes between other species. The galaxy had not collapsed into chaos as many had feared. Instead, it had found a new balance. Captain Morrison still commanded the Liberty, but now it served as a peaceful exploration vessel rather than a weapon of demonstration. Lieutenant Carter had mapped 17 new hyperspace routes that cut travel time between distant worlds. Commander Johnson's engineering innovations were being quietly adopted by species across the galaxy. The Empire remained the largest political entity in galactic space, but it no longer ruled through fear and superior force. Other species had watched humanity's successful rebellion and begun demanding greater autonomy for themselves. The age of absolute imperial control was ending, replaced by a more cooperative and diverse galactic community. In his private chambers, aboard the Liberty, Captain Morrison looked out at the stars through his viewport and smiled. The mission was complete. Humanity had announced its return to the galaxy not with conquest or destruction, but with a simple message that echoed across the stars. We are here. We are free. And we are staying. The galaxy would never be the same.